Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Best Care Anywhere podcast. My name is Anthony, and I am your host. And with me, as always, is the official milk monitor of the podcast, Jared.
Hello there.
And the one thing that is keeping us safe from the communist menace, Wilson.
So you're telling me that when James T Callahan kisses McLean Stevenson with a surprise, little flourish, it's a great bit and hilarious. But when I try to do it, I'm weird and need to get off his property and will have charges pressed against me. Just,
that joke would have been really funny if McLean Stevenson wasn't dead.
Oh God, oh no.
More like when I do it, it's weird and please get off the cemetery grounds. Oh no.
Officer, this podcast here, officer. Yep.
It's this podcast here, officer. It's this the one. Yep. How are you guys doing? Did you have a Merry Christmas?
I did have a good Christmas. Yeah.
Good Christmas.
Yeah. I'm deep frying all the food now. It's great.
That's right.
You're air frying all the food. There is a difference, allegedly.
Listen to me. This is an 8-quart air fryer. I can fit whole cobs of corn in there, many of them, and still have room. This is a deep fryer, but it uses air. A little bit of olive oil, a little bit of potatoes, some black pepper, some salt, Italian seasoning, a little bit of garlic, tossed up in some olive oil. Ooh, so good.
Was tonight your first use of the air fryer?
It was.
Oh.
Yeah. Now,
awesome.
I will say, is it perfect? No. Can you do a similar thing in the oven? Yes. This took 15 minutes, though.
See, I'm really going to upset the air fryer crowd.
I feel like the air fryer fits in the same category as microwave. It's like a
microwave alternative. Yes. If you want to have just deep fry, say you got a bag of, mozzarella sticks in the freezer, right? And you want just some really, really nice could you put them in the microwave? Yes. Would they be kind of sad and floppy? Yes. Could you put them in the oven? Of course, absolutely. But what if you're hungry and you want them now?
I am hungry and I want them now.
Bro, I bet there's air fryer Reddit. Dude, I bet there's a whole universe of air frying that you are about to discover.
Air fryer recipes, air fryer hacks.
There you go. And he's gone. He's gone, folks. We're not going to hear from him again. We're just going to hear the gentle hum of an air fryer in the background. Ethan, how was your Christmas?
It was good. It was quiet, and that is
it's fucking
always
cold.
Yeah.
Jared, I need you to stop looking at air fryer recipes. Come back to us.
Okay.
Minimize the window.
Picture this in your mind.
I will not.
You have cute little potatoes, right? And you need to prep them for the air fryer. So you take an apple core and you just ka-chunk, 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 and then you toss those suckers in there.
Potato wedges.
I don't know if we can put this in the podcast just so people can have an idea of what I'm talking about and the fact that I'm not crazy, because I feel like everyone deserves to have a fried potato flour like this.
Are you sure that you're not
delicious?
Is that a bloomin' potato?
I'm not a potatoologist. I don't know the differences between the potatoes. Do you know what a bloomin' onion is? No.
Okay.
I just see a starch and I eat it.
That's I can't argue with that.
Out Irishing me?
A little bit. My Christmas was good. Thank you for asking, since no one did.
We were caught up in the thrill of it all.
Sorry, yes, I was caught up in the starch.
Caught up in the air fryer.
Yeah, I was caught up in the starch. Yeah.
Oh God. Christmas was good. The nephew and niece came over. They were loud and I don't want to say obnoxious, but we were their first stop on Christmas morning, so they were schmoovin'. They were ready.
Oh, they had a few stops, huh?
Mm-hmm. I think best gift was genuinely, I think best gift was telescope and new nice fitting undershirts that my mom found. So yeah, not anything crazy as far as telescopes go. It's one of the nice National Geographic ones that you can like mount a phone to and take basic astronomy pictures, but still. Or watch your neighbor's, HBO, whatever.
Little column A, little column B.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, fun. I will say I did open a gift that I immediately am like, did my mom get this for me or for Jared? That would be the Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh my god, that was so funny that happened because
set.
Weird coincidences in life.
Mm-hmm. You've been getting very into TNG the last couple weeks. The one thing I've learned in the little bit of TNG we have discussed and watched, Data is fucking terrifying. When you stop and think about it for 5 seconds, Data is terrifying. The concept
of Data is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Data as a character is just lovely.
But anyway, we do have some follow-up before the next episode, or before we get into this episode, rather.
Yes.
Because we did pose a question to the audience, so it would be fair for us to answer it. We did, at the end of last episode, we did pose, was Hawkeye and Trapper's psychological manipulation of Colonel Brighton appropriate? I believe, Jared, you were firmly in the camp of, yep. I think we all were pretty much in the camp of, yes, it's appropriate. Chad Smith has a couple comments. First of all, Milk and Pepsi was something that came up last week.
Oh.
What?
Pilk.
Yeah.
Apparently turned up in a 1970s sitcom, Laverne and Shirley. It's Laverne DeFazio's favorite drink, which, delicious.
The internet's horrors know no bounds.
The on the subject of Colonel Brighton, Chad Smith said, on top of suffering more casualties and gaining less ground than other commanders, Buzz Brighton's chief sin is that he views the war as his big shot at advancing his career at the expense of his troops. I'd agree with that.
Yes.
That's a very good point.
That is not great. Donut Eater 111 said, since this was a more comedic episode, you could argue they went a bit further than they could have gone. However, in normal terms, he does not think they went too far in a moral sense. So, yeah. All right. Again, we asked that question because there's going to be other episodes where we're definitely going to have to look at the Doctor's actions and go, was this justified? So I wanted to set a baseline. But one more thing I'll mention before we get into this very fun and not difficult to discuss at all episode. Right before we recorded, we had a little discussion. We've been talking about MASH for 34 weeks straight. Yay, us. Clap, clap. We're going to take a break. What I mean by that is we have decided that the next episode, so the first episode of 2023, we will not be discussing MASH. Well, maybe. We'll see. Depends on what you guys say. We would like to do an episode where we don't talk about MASH for an episode, and we talk about our favorite pieces of media from 2022, whether that be movies, TV, music, video games, just not MASH for an episode, just to take a little bit of a breather, especially since this episode is a little bit of a heavier one. We'd also like to hear from you guys. What was your favorite bits of media? I know I've seen a couple people posting. I think Donut Eater, if I remember correctly, was one of the people who he has a tweet that he did, and he's replying every couple days. He's listing the top, I think, 20 animated TV shows he watched, because he branched out and watched some new animated shows. Star Wars The Clone Wars is on there, and I'm very happy to hear that. I think more people should enjoy Star Wars The Clone Wars.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what others he put on there.
So at the top, before we get lost in the sauce with this episode, I just want to say, if you have a favorite piece of media, it doesn't have to be new media either. Spoiler alert, one of the things I'm going to say is The Lord of the Rings. It does not have to be new media, just new to you. So let us know. We'll discuss that next episode, take a little breather from MASH, and then we'll get back into MASH episode after that. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Lovely. Absolutely
fabulous.
Lovely. Yes.
I don't think there was anything else to discuss. So I think it is time to discuss this week's episode, Season 1, Episode 17, Sometimes You Hear the Bullet, written by Carl Kleinschmidt. Actually, and I would like to shout out someone. One of our followers on Twitter, who I need to find. in the scene. We got a lot of responses from this for this episode.
That's pretty cool.
Eleazar? Yeah. She mentioned on the post I put out saying we were doing this episode, she mentioned to please point out that Carl Kleinschmidt, who wrote the episode, had just passed away on December 8th this year.
Oh.
So I saw that he had passed away, but the thing with the announcements of this famous MASH person, like you'll see like have you guys ever seen like the social media posts where it's like this famous person from this movie or thing you liked died, and you click on the link and it's like Tim Smith was the craft services provider for 3 episodes of Happy Days, and it's just some obscure yeah, he was part of a crew, but maybe not.
I feel like he was probably famous for at least one other thing, you know? I've seen those advertisements all the time.
But Carl Kleinschmidt, I saw the post people were making that he passed away, but I didn't connect what episodes he had written. This was one of the episodes, so just strange timing as far as our podcast is concerned. But Carl Kleinschmidt, unfortunately, did pass away. He wrote for a couple other shows, Dick Van Dyke Show, Middle Age Crazy. Again, another one of these writers that just was doing a lot of writing for TV through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. This is his first of 2 MASH episodes. So we're already halfway through his contributions to the show, but that's okay. Director for this episode was William Wiard. We have talked about him several times. This would be, I believe he directed the last episode as well, if I'm remembering correctly. No, that was Jackie Cooper. He directed Tuttle. He directed Henry Please Come Home. So he directed a lot of the funnier episodes, which is an interesting choice for directing this episode, as we are going to discuss. First question I'll ask. Do you guys understand why this is the episode I would say people need to get to in season 1?
Yeah, they really... I wish they had made this episode 10 episodes earlier. If that makes sense. I wish it would have been more in the first handful. Not in the first 5, but just after, maybe in the first 10. If it was episode number 7 instead of 17.
Let me look. Interesting. So I was just looking at the production order of the shows. This is actually a later in the production order. It's actually almost, of the 24 season 1 episodes, this was the 18th produced. So it's actually much later in the production order. This actually, if I'm remembering the math from our very, very first episode, this would have been in the first round of additional episodes they asked for, because they only initially wanted 12 episodes for season 1. So,
Interesting.
So I'm going to try to let you guys kind of not lead the discussion, but I could talk about this episode for 12 and a half hours, but I kind of want to lead you guys into discussing your thoughts on it, because I know how I feel about this episode. You guys have heard me rave about this episode, but I want to get your opinion on it, and we'll start with for an episode that goes where it goes. I'm so happy we start where we do. We start with Frank and Margaret on a date.
Oh, Frank.
This is actually one of the more normal-ish Frank and Margaret moments. They're just meeting for dinner and dancing. They're dressed up. It's,
dare I say, almost wholesome.
It's almost wholesome. I will point out something I've noticed the last couple times I watched this episode. Frank has a kind of almost a C storyline, because there's an A storyline, a B storyline. Frank kind of has a third of a storyline that he kind of has. He's trying to get a purple heart later in the episode, and Frank and Margaret are both wearing purple in this scene, which I'm assuming is just a coincidence, but I always notice that. But
that is a cool little coincidence, though.
So Frank and Margaret are enjoying their date, and Frank is dancing with Margaret. I love the line where Margaret mentions, "This song gives me goosebumps," to which Frank responds, "So does I feel the same way about Pennsylvania 65000," which I've heard that song. Doesn't give me goosebumps. Frank is strange.
Well, he is a strange little man, isn't he?
He is a strange little man. And then Frank, to Larry Linville's credit, dips Margaret and holds her there for like a minute.
Yeah.
Larry Linville got some core strength. Jesus. But yeah, Frank has thrown out his back, and this is apparently a reoccurring injury. And Margaret needs to get him out of her tent and make it look like he wasn't there. So while that's going on, Hawkeye and Trapper are awoken and disturbed by this occurrence.
Naturally. I'm disturbed watching it.
I mean, yeah. So Hawkeye and Trapper... Hawkeye is interrupted on a date, and Trapper comes to get him to help Frank to the post-op to deal with his back. He mentions that it goes out every few years. They're not fooled at all by the fact that Frank was definitely totally not coming from Margaret's tent. And they help him to the post-op.
There's no hiding that, despite Margaret's best efforts, which I'm going to be honest, her best efforts are pretty terrible.
Yeah, not great. And even Hawkeye's like, he's going to be in divorce court if you don't erase the tracks from your tent. Which is wonderful. Fun little factoid that I found, having a chronic back problem like that is this bad would actually qualify Frank as 4F, unfit to serve in the military.
Oh, God, don't tell him that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You don't say.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Interesting.
And it's also the first of many Frank maladies we're going to hear of.
Do you mean I have a Frank malady?
I mean, yeah.
Well, frankly, I like the sound of that.
Ugh.
Yeah, I don't know. You got that nice new bed now. You may not have a wiggly spine problem much longer. Who's to say?
Let's hope so.
Side note, how is your bed? You've had it for a while now. Are you enjoying?
It's been I think a little over 2 weeks now. Yeah, it's great so far. Yeah.
Excellent.
Would
I'm
recommend if you I will give this caveat because there were a lot of reviews saying it's so hard, it's so uncomfortable. It is their bed, Sweet Night, their memory foam mattresses are firm. If you don't like firm beds, then yeah, they're gonna feel not great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. People like this. I don't sleep with pillows anymore because they feel like cardboard. Trying to sleep on cardboard compared to this thing. It is so comfortable for me.
Very nice.
If you like really flat mattresses, Sweet Night.
Hashtag not a sponsor.
Hashtag not sponsored. I wish they would though.
Frank is now in traction, which I don't think up until I saw this episode for the first time I'd ever seen anyone in traction. This looks unfun.
Did you guys?
I'll be honest, it looks really comfy.
You guys watched all those old Tom and Jerry episodes and Looney Tunes and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always heard traction, never knew that this is what it meant.
I feel like it would elongate my spine wonderfully.
It's basically using weights, pulling on your feet and on your head to hopefully not stretch, but, provide enough wiggle room for a disc to slip back into place.
I want to try this. I really do.
I feel like this is the same kind of like if you know those inversion tables that hang you upside down by your ankles to let your spine stretch back out?
Yeah, I've got one.
I feel like it's kind of that energy. Like it's just pulling weight, not how the spine is, like the spine's usually compressed by your body weight, not stretched. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Obligatory we are not doctors part of the podcast. So Frank is in traction. He is being doted upon by Major Houlihan.
Oh my goodness, is he
Shocker.
being doted upon? Oh.
And Henry comes to visit. Hi, Henry.
That's wonderful to see Henry again.
Yes, but he is here because Frank has put in for the Military Order of the Purple Heart.
Well,
given to those wounded in combat. Technically, as Margaret points out, Frank is at a frontline combat unit and sustained injury. I would hope.
That is correct. That is technically true, yes.
And he did put on the form, tripped in mud on way to shower.
He did, because he's an honest little major.
I mean, as honest as a lie can be, but yes, go on.
Well, if he wasn't honest, it wouldn't get past Henry.
That's, yeah.
Because Henry is not an idiot. He's stupid. A lovable...
He's not an idiot.
Henry is an idiot. A lovable idiot, but he's not stupid. There we go. I got those backwards. And I love Henry even reads out, is that what you wanted to say when they announce it, Frank? Tripped in the mud on the way to the shower. I would hope whoever is reviewing this further up the chain goes, yeah, no, but it's a bureaucracy, so probably not. Yeah. Hawkeye overhears this, makes fun of Frank, as he should.
Naturally.
I love the, you're not going to endorse this idiot's application. That's major to you. Henry, you're not going to endorse this major idiot's application, are you? Just the show, it's already firing on all cylinders for this episode.
Oh, yeah.
And then a wounded soldier is carried into the post-op.
A traumatized, clearly
traumatized, clearly wounded soldier asking for Dr. Pierce. And when Hawkeye bends down and asks him what's wrong, he responds with, oh God, what does he respond with? I'm not at the part where the subtitles are up, and I forgot.
You're my problem. I think I love you.
You're my problem. I think I love you. And let me tell you this, Tommy Gillis has big Ethan energy.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
Tommy has big Ethan energy. Yep. So
he do be me, though.
This ends up being Hawkeye's very longtime friend from elementary school, Tommy Gillis, serving in Korea as a foot soldier to, quote, keep the country safe from the communist menace. I love how they're getting on, and Henry's just awkwardly standing there, like
he's just standing in the back, just kind of laughing, like, who's this?
Which, let's be honest, I hate, because Tommy seems like, no offense, Ethan, Tommy seems like that friend. He seems more Ethan than Ethan is, if that makes sense. He seems very loud and obnoxious.
How am I not supposed to be offended by that?
Okay, how about this? Tommy doesn't have Ethan energy. Ethan has, like, low Tommy energy. Tommy seems like he could be too much most of the time. Is that fair? Is that better?
You know what? I'm just there's no way we end this conversation without my feelings getting hurt. So let's just move on.
Anyway, I have been introduced to my friends' friends who are like Tommy, and I feel Henry's energy in this moment. Like, yep, you guys are friends, and you're doing weird friend shit. Either introduce me or go away because I'm uncomfortable. Yep. So, back in the swamp, Trapper, Hawkeye, and Tommy are meeting each other, catching up, reminiscing, telling stories of Hawkeye's youth as the milk monitor during the Depression.
Yes.
But then we get to why Tommy is here. And what'd you guys think of Tommy's reasoning? I mean, he was drafted anyway, so he's going to be there no matter what. But what did you guys think of his want to document the war from the first person?
So going off of what he said, I'm assuming that his job back in the States was being a reporter of some sort. And
yeah,
Hawkeye's asking, well, why aren't you, doing the same thing you were already doing, but for the war? Like, why didn't they put you there? And he's like, well, I think it'd be better if a soldier wrote about it than a reporter. Like, he does have a good point. He does have a good point, because if a reporter wrote about it, it wouldn't be from the perspective of someone actually in the war. It'd be from the perspective of someone whose job it is to write about the war, not to live it, I feel like. So, yeah, I think he has a good point.
But then again, it depends what level of correspondent you are, because there
are war correspondents that are, like, attached to units, and they are living the war. And there's others that follow along a couple hundred miles from the front line.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be able to remember their names right now, but there are definitely well-known war correspondents from the Second World War who like landed on like a lot of the footage we get from like Iwo Jima, Normandy. Those
was all them.
Those were dudes that went in that landed on that beach with maybe a sidearm and a camera
and pounds of camera equipment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he could have gone the official correspondent route, but he wanted the boots on the ground feel, which respectable. And there's also that it's hard to tell because I forgot to mention the actor is James T. Callahan, not Kirk. Sorry, we were so close.
Oh, dang it.
James T. Callahan is much older, and even Alan Alda's a little old for like not necessarily for a doctor in military occupation, but definitely a foot soldier. I think like the average age of casualties in World War II is like 24 or something like that. But even though he doesn't look young, he's obviously young enough to get drafted and serve in a combat unit. So there's probably also that like younger man's sense of, I don't want to say adventure, but daring and excitement, something like, you know what I mean? I'm sure he's not like, yeah, war, cool, fun, let's go. He's like, I see this as a challenge and a bit of an adventure to go and write about it from the first person. Does that make sense? So there
Let's
might
see
be
how that works out for him.
Shush. Don't. That's not even, there's a much darker foreshadowing. We'll get to that.
Okay.
So yeah, James T. Callahan, by the way, the actor playing Tommy Gillis, was again another one of these actors that was in a whole bunch of TV movies and other bit parts in TV
Callahan
shows.
Again. I was going to let it slide, but then I decided not to.
That's his name, James T. Callahan.
You said Kurt.
I was making.
I hate you so much.
Ethan, in the original Star Trek, James T. Kirk is the captain of the Enterprise. This is James T. Callahan. That's why I went James T. Callahan. We were so close to James T. Kirk. I was making a reference, you see, to the fact that you're a fucking idiot. Anyway.
You're not going to cut this, are you?
No, I'm not. The actor's name is James T. Callahan. This is what I get for trying to make a subtle joke.
Yeah.
God damn it.
I bet you feel pretty silly right about now.
I'm getting
I have a lot of feelings.
By proximity.
I have a lot of feelings, and silly is not among them. Anyway. Jesus Christ. We are going to have to do a Star Trek podcast if he doesn't even know James T. Kirk. Anyway. Deep breath. Deep breath. Squeeze my stress ball. We're good.
You have a stress ball?
It's shaped like the state of Kansas.
What?
James T. Callahan is the actor who plays Tommy Gillis. He was in, again, bit actor, bunch of different roles in TV movies and TV series. The Black Sheep Squadron, Knight Rider, The Runaways, The Governor and JJ, just a whole bunch of different shows. So the fact that he was on MASH, not surprising. This will be his only MASH episode. I wonder why. Which is, I said that it's something I've pointed out for all the other guest actors, and I realized this one it's a little meaner. But yeah, but I think again, I would say this is similar to Edwina, where yes, they're only in here one episode, but in the short time he's on screen, I think his impact is very good. I think he's on screen for like less. I think he's actually on screen for less than 5 minutes in the whole episode.
Yeah, it's not very long.
And that's if you count OR. That's if you only count scenes where he has dialogue. Yeah, it's even less. But yeah, he's talking about he wanted to write from the first person view, and he's trying to explain to Hawkeye and Trapper what his thinking was. And it basically boils down to he wants to tell the truth of what this war is. And he compares it to, you see this blonde kid in every war movie, and there's the big dramatic pew, the big ricochet right before he dies. That's not how it happens. We had a kid like that in our outfit. He got blown in half, and the only thing he was able to say was, "I didn't hear no bullet." That's why the book's called what it's called. And I would say this is one of the more serious,
yeah, this is when the show the show's tone takes a serious turn.
This episode specifically has a little tone shift, but also the show, because we've had like the end of Yankee Doodle Doctor where the tone shifted suddenly. We had the episode with Virginia Lee, Young Hee, where it's like, oh yeah, this is funny show, this girl's a slave, but it's still funny show, fun time. There's definitely been a couple tone shifts, and this is another one where it's like, ooh, okay, MASH, what are you doing? And I love there's the beat of silence, and then is it Hawkeye who says it first? I think it's Trapper that says it first. It's Hawkeye. Let's get drunk. I'll drink to that. And then Tommy replies with, I don't drink, as he reaches for another martini. It's just a nice little tension break.
Yeah.
What was my next note? So they're drinking. They get called to surgery. Tommy's like, what the hell was that? Hawkeye, it's him. He hates when we drink. As they're going off to surgery, Hawkeye asks Tommy, when will I see you again? And this is one of those lines that you don't think about it until after you've watched the episode all the way through. When will I see you again? That's up to the North Koreans.
It was very obvious where this episode was going from the start.
You know what's funny? I can't specifically remember seeing this episode for the first time, but I know I have a sense that I didn't have a sense of like foreboding. I don't know if it's, I want to say I saw this episode for the first time when I was about 11 or 12. I can't remember thinking that was going to happen, but we'll get to that when we get to that, because I have many thoughts, as I'm sure you both do as well. Why do I have the word prance in my notes?
Because when you're living in a tent with three other guys,
Prance makes me nervous. Yes.
Yeah. Tommy asks, where are they going? You guys aren't just going to prance off and leave me. And then Alan Alda, hey, I live in a tent with three other guys. The word prance makes me nervous. I have used that joke, and I love it. Someone just throws out the word prance. Because, like, let's be fair. When do you ever use the word prance? When does that word come up?
Probably the last time I used it was at camp.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you why.
Yeah. I think the only time I'd regularly use it is Christmas when discussing reindeer. That's about it.
That's the only other occasion.
So if I ever hear it in any other context, I think of this line, and I have used this joke, and it makes people feel a little awkward, and I love that. I love making people feel a little awkward. But so they go to surgery. Tommy leaves. They're short a man in surgery because Frank's back is, doing the cha-cha slide. So we're in this OR scene. It's pretty mundane, except for a specific patient. What did you guys think of Hawkeye's patient, Wendell, when we first meet him?
Yep, that's a child.
Yep, that's a child. Yep.
I thought he's a long way from Mayberry.
We'll get to who he is for a minute. Clearly, Wilson, you know who this actor is. Did you recognize this actor, Jared?
I'm trying to get a picture of his face again.
There's two ways you would know him, and I'm thinking you probably know him the way that you wouldn't recognize him. You would know him as an adult.
I don't think I recognize him. Yeah, I probably didn't see him in anything until he was much older.
You probably didn't see him in anything when he was older, but you've definitely watched some things he's made.
Really? Before
we reveal who he is, let's talk about his actor once he's conscious and can speak for himself a little bit. But right now, Hawkeye, it's purely obvious that this child has no facial hair or body hair. He's scrawny. He's barely pubescent. He is obviously a child. He is obviously too young to be there. The actor playing him is 18 in this episode, but he's playing a much younger character, which he can do. Hawkeye has some snide comments about, if they're old enough to reach the trigger, they're old enough to enlist. But he's kind of blasé about it, which is kind of surprising. But Oh, come on. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead to where I need to see the show. We'll cut this out. Don't worry about it.
I trust your editing. Implicitly.
So, post-surgery, Hawkeye is doing some passionate necking with Lieutenant Dish. Sharing olives, which turn out to be disgusting.
Communist olives, to be specific.
Communist olives.
Yes.
But he can't do that because Frank is in pain and desperately needs Hawkeye, according to Margaret. Hawkeye goes over, talks to Frank, realizes Frank is just whining, and is going to leave when young Wendell Peterson wakes up and is talking to Hawkeye. Hawkeye explains that you were pulled off the line for appendicitis. We took your appendix out. No big deal. He asks Wendell how old he is, and Wendell responds 20. Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out. And then he quickly doubles back and says he's 18, to which Hawkeye replies, you look for someone who's both 20 and 18, you look very 16 to me now. There's this first initial conversation is very interesting with Hawkeye and Wendell, I think. Because Wendell is very much in the I'm coming over here to, fight the bad guy and be a hero and da-da-da, and Hawkeye's like, dude, chill. Relax. But he does have Wendell does have a line that has always stuck with me. Wendell and Hawkeye have a little exchange that is always just it's burrowed a spot deep in my brain. And that would be I'm over here to kill gooks, sir. And we've talked about the word gooks on the show, episode 5, the moose. We were told by our friend Tyler that gooks is a slang term for Korean people. And Hawkeye responds to Wendell saying, I'm here to kill gooks. The line that has always stuck with me is Hawkeye responding with, another word for gooks is people. Anytime I've heard, even in mundane ways, like there's obvious examples I could pull, like other racial slurs, stuff like that, but even something as much as there could be a discussion about migrants, trying to cross the border to get into America. You're like, oh, these Mexicans or these migrants or these, like, anytime I hear about people that other people are angry with, I always think of this line, another word for blank is people. Like, that has stuck with me for years. Like, and it, like, even in some of the discussions we've had recently, like, take the Ukraine-Russia thing. I think we had a conversation way back when about, like, these Russian conscripts that are basically being forced to go to Ukraine against their will. That, when we were talking about that this line, another word for gooks is people, popped in my head. It's like, yeah, Russia's doing terrible things, and one of those terrible things is forcing their own young men to go do this. So, I don't know. This line, I think it goes by really quick, but I think it is more powerful than people give it credit for. And I kind of want to know, what do you guys think of that? I've diatribed about it, but what did you guys think? Did it kind of pass you by, or did you kind of go like, ooh? Or do you disagree with me entirely?
It's just it's just good writing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if this was in a different episode, I don't think it would stick out as much. And even though the overarching episode has nothing to do with this one, not throwaway line, but this one little one-liner thrown in there, but it's because the episode takes such a serious turn, I feel like that adds to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, anything special or spectacular, but because of its neighbors and where it is, it stands out.
And I like that it takes something we saw very heavily in another episode and just kind of is like a little reminder, like a little seasoning of, hey, remember this?
Okay. Yeah.
And I love that in Hawkeye has now experienced this word twice with two different people, with a grown adult man that should know better, immediate anger. With someone who he clearly understands as a child, it's firm, but it's like, dude, listen to what you just said for a second. I like that Hawkeye has the maturity to like understand how he should approach the two different instances also.
Yeah.
So, Ethan, what do you think? You seem quiet and contemplative over there.
Well, you know, this line, it passed me by pretty well, and I think it did that just because I was so used to, you know, how he approached it in episodes prior, where, you know, it's very clear how he feels about it, and so, you know, when I heard it, I already kind of knew where it was going. But there's a lot of weight to the words that you can attribute it to it. But, you know, when you mix a good line like that in with the rest of such a great episode, it's easy for it to slip through the cracks, or at least it's easy for me to let it slip through the cracks.
And I'll say an even more mundane daily time that this phrase would pop in my head was working in service. Like there'd be, like, I hate to like butcher Hawkeye's line and dumb it down to this simple of a explanation, but genuinely I've had the thought during the day working in the service industry and grocery industry of, another word for Karens is people, they're just having a bad day, let it go. Like, genuinely, this line has made days better for me, because I'll have that moment of, I could get angry at this person, but they're just having a bad day. This will pass, not a big deal. Like, I think I'm maybe overdoing it, but this line definitely left an impact for as simple, just a little throwaway line that it was. So, yeah. Anyway, we've harped on that for long enough. So Hawkeye drops the little knowledge bomb of, I know you're underage, but kind of leaves it at that. And you can see on Wendell's face, he's like, oh, shit. But Hawkeye gets back to his date for all of, what, 5 seconds? 10 seconds? What's the record here, do we think? How long did we get to canoodle before Hawkeye gets dragged away again?
Not long enough.
Not long enough.
I will say, you whore.
This is one of those little side conversations that just like, damn, the writing in this episode is firing on all cylinders. What'd you do while I was gone? Well, I filed my nails. I read this dirty book. Dirty? It's Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Uh-huh. Why is one of the dwarves named Leather?
But I'm bum.
That line always gets me. It's like, I forget that line's there and it sneaks up on you. It sneaks up on you and beats you over the head. I'm like, oh, okay. Radar comes to let Hawkeye know that he's needed over in post-op again. Hawkeye responds with, get out of here, Hot Lip. If you don't get out of here, Hot Lips, I'll shoot you. It's not Hot Lips, it's Radar. Radar, if you don't get out of here, I'm going to shoot Hot Lips. All right.
How, you know what this scene made me think of? How widespread is Hot Lips' nickname that, you know, Radar accepting it as one thing, but the nurse friend canoodling in the tent is unfazed by it too.
The entire camp knows her as Hot Lips Houlihan.
Oh, that's funny to me. I don't know why. It just is.
That's also another... We talked about it a couple episodes ago. We are slowly getting to the naive Iowa Radar. This is one last vestige of movie-style Radar, because there's no earthly way the full-fledged TV version of Radar would ever have the gall, even in private to Hawkeye, to call Major Houlihan Hot Lips. He would fear a lightning bolt descending from the sky upon him. But again, movie Radar is a little edgier. He's a little more angsty. But so Hawkeye heads back over to the OR, where there is a full-on brawl taking place between the two gentlemen who we saw in surgery earlier, but we didn't mention, who were in surgery for beating the crap out of each other. And they're back to fighting again because allegedly one of them stole the other one's salami. A crime. Little fun fact about these two gentlemen. The two gentlemen are Fred Lerner and Chuck Hicks. They're both stunt coordinators and actors throughout various films in Hollywood. Fred Lerner, who I think is the one wearing the shirt. I'm not actually sure which one's which. But Fred Lerner was actually one of the main stunt coordinators for a movie that you actually mentioned earlier, Ethan. Ho, ho, ho. He has a machine gun. Fred Lerner was one of the stunt coordinators for Die Hard. So yeah, we've come full circle. Once again, a film that is not a Christmas movie. Anyway, moving right along past that, because I've already had this discussion 4 times on another podcast. Yeah. Hawkeye mediates the fight rather well. He arranges for Radar to get both the men a salami, and that if they try to fight again or argue, Radar is to beat them to death with their own salami. Which, you know, I think that's a fair punishment. As Hawkeye is leaving, he notices that Wendell is missing. And Wendell takes exactly 3 steps outside and tries to hotwire a Jeep.
Yep.
He's my kind of man. Well, kid.
He is not feet from where he is trying to escape from, doing something that he probably genuinely doesn't know how to do. Hawkeye catches him, and an argument ensues. Now, before we get into the argument, we have failed to mention who this actor is. This is Ron Howard. Jared, you would know him for his various directing and producing roles, such as Solo, a Star Wars story, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the Jim Carrey version, Apollo 13, The Da Vinci Code, and he is one of the lead producers on the new Willow TV show that's coming out on Disney+. You would also know him as Opie Taylor from The Andy Griffith Show, the little kid from The Andy Griffith Show. Are you familiar with The Andy Griffith Show?
That would require having television, so no.
Okay, backing up. So The Andy Griffith Show, old-style TV. Andy Griffith is the chief of police in a small town. Opie's his son. Just very old-timey... I don't want to say old-timey TV, but very much simpler sitcom TV, like The Waltons, Happy Days. You've probably seen references to or heard the theme song or the opening title. It's like black and white, father-son walking with fishing poles. It's the whistling, the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. If I showed it to you, you'd probably recognize it, but if you didn't grow up with TV or have the show on DVD, there's no way you would have seen it. So, Wilson, how familiar are you with the Andy Griffith Show?
I would imagine much references.
Okay, yeah.
You know?
I think we had like 1 or 2 seasons on DVD growing up, and I've seen a little bit of it, but not a whole lot. It was a popular enough TV show that it actually got like several spin-off series that Ron Howard was also a part of. Ironically, Gomer Pyle, who is a character in Mayberry, I believe he's the gas station clerk and mechanic. Again, big Ethan energy. He got his own spin-off show called Gomer Pyle USMC, which have you ever heard, for example, have you ever heard someone referred to jokingly as Gomer Pyle doing something stupid? I think Full Metal Jacket makes the joke at one point.
I have been referred to as Gomer for most of my life in certain circles.
I believe the one character in Full Metal Jacket gets called Private Pyle for this specific reason. It's a reference to this character. In one of the episodes of Gomer Pyle USMC, the show is about Gomer enlisting in the Marine Corps. In one of the episodes, a young 11-year-old Opie Taylor, played by Ron Howard, runs away from home and to Gomer's Marine barracks to try to enlist in the Marine Corps. Best Care Anywhere podcast fan fiction. This is this part 2 of that episode.
Oh my god.
But so yeah, Ron Howard, I would argue one of the more prolific directors in our current time. I was looking at his IMDb and he has got his fingers in a lot more stuff than I realized he did. So yeah, if you look at his like producer or writing credits, there are a lot of A lot of things that he's not top billing on, but he definitely had a hand in helping make, which is wild to me. But anyway, so yeah, Ron Howard playing Wendell, or as we learn, Walter Peterson. And his story is he wanted to run away from home, join the army, to show up the guy that is stealing his girl Bernice away from him. Because he's a little older and he came back from boot camp with shiny new metal on his chest. So, of course, being a jealous, horny young teenager, he did the only logical thing and was steal his older brother's paperwork and enlist in the United States Marine Corps.
Yup.
How do we feel with okay. Being a fan of World War II history, this is not an uncommon thing you hear of in World War I, World War II, and Korea. I almost said World War III. Backing up. This is not an uncommon occurrence. My own grandpa was trying to enlist with his brother's paperwork until by the time he got through everything, he was of age. How do you guys feel about kids who were so gung-ho they enlisted before they turned 18? How do we feel about that? Sad. Yeah, sad mostly, yes.
Because they're not old enough to realize the decision they're making. They think it's what they want, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
They've been indoctrinate's a strong word. They've been compelled by factors around them to think that this is what they should do.
Whenever I think of this, I think, and even again, the characters in this piece of media are of age, I believe. But I always think of All Quiet on the Western Front, which if you have not seen, I've seen a little bit of the new Netflix series. Oh my God, it's like watching a horror movie.
The original one is terrifying.
The original one's like watching a horror movie, but God, the new one is, I need to finish watching it. It is good. But I get the sense that like the young German kids in the school have, where they think it's this grand adventure, but little do they know the actual terrible things that go on. So again, yeah, I don't think indoctrinated is the right word, but just misguided youthful thoughts on not understanding the reality of the world yet. So, yeah. Weirdly, though, Hawkeye, this is a very interesting character arc for Hawkeye, because he doesn't immediately, I think anyone who has seen the show would think Hawkeye from a season or two from now would immediately turn Walter in. Immediately, without question. But I like that they're kind of showing Hawkeye as a little naive here as too, kind of like Walter is, where he's like, look, it's none of my business, which, yeah, it is. You're an adult and he's a 15-year-old child. He's 15. Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. But I kind of get Hawkeye's character arc here, where it's still early in the war. He hasn't been quite as jaded yet. He says specifically, if you want to dress up like a soldier and play Marine, that's none of my business. Just let yourself heal first.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very conflict-averse way to deal with that situation. I don't think it's against Hawkeye's character necessarily, but I think this episode is the foundation for what Hawkeye's character will become. Because as we're going to see in a few scenes, he has a key moment in his life, not just his military service, but this episode will change Hawkeye's view of things going forward. Even though they don't directly reference that this is the reason why, Hawkeye goes through a major character change here in about 5 minutes. So, what do you guys think?
You could be referring to? I have no idea.
Foreshadowing is very obvious in this instance. What would you do if you were in Hawkeye's shoes? You are a drafty military officer and realize that one of your patients is a 15-year-old kid. Like, I don't think this is. I'm asking the question that seems to have an obvious answer, but like,
if I was in Hawkeye's shoes, yeah, I probably would have sent his ass home.
We really need to go over the Hippocratic Oath, because what
are they going to do? Fire me?
Hawkeye's not a priest. This isn't a confessional. And ultimately, his job as a doctor is to do no harm. That is part of the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. Letting Wendell go back to the front would arguably be doing him harm. So, interesting dilemma there. And I'll pose the question to the audience. What do you think of this whole where Hawkeye is right now? Because I'm so used to watching righteous, angry at the war Hawkeye that I forget there is an episode where Hawkeye is legitimately just going to like hand wave away a 15-year-old fighting in a combat zone. So I'm curious to know what people think of that. But so he gets Wendell back inside. Hawkeye is trying to get back to Lieutenant Dish, but as is the case in a MASH unit, wounded arrive. According to Trapper, an entire regiment took it in the teeth. They're going to be busy all night. And we move to OR where things are. I wouldn't say this is this is no different than any other OR scene we've gotten initially. It's busy. It's a little frantic, but there's nothing crazy going on until Hawkeye gets a new patient. And I would like you guys to tell me how you experienced this scene, because this is the moment where MASH takes a very drastic turn.
Well, I'm sitting there, minding my own business, and all of a sudden, I get my heart stepped on.
Mm-hmm.
Take it away, Jared.
Well, I mean, it was pretty obvious from the first moment they were like, hey, look at this childhood friend of Hawkeye's who we've never talked about before. Wow. Or like even Father Mulcahy's making an appearance in this episode. I wonder what that could be about. Huh. Yeah. Not very surprising.
Having watched the episode as many times as I have, it is like, wow, Hawkeye's friend's here, and he's suddenly not. Dang, that's weird. Anyway.
Yeah, I feel like if they didn't have to follow the terrible TV format for its time of 20 minutes of television with 5 minutes of commercials in between every 10 minutes, it would have been much better, because the pacing of this episode just feels awful. It feels so rushed. It's like, hey, here's his friend, and he's gone, and here's a child, and the child's gone, and here's his friend again, he's gonna die.
This is one of the episodes.
Whoa, slow down a little bit.
This is one of the episodes I would say would have been made 10 times better, which is saying something, because I still, despite the pacing issues, I still think this is a great episode of writing-wise.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is one of the few MASH episodes that is drastically improved if they were going writing season to season as opposed to episode. If we had gotten to know Tommy a little bit more,
if you'd showed up a couple times previously.
Characters that they aren't in every episode, but they show up once or twice a season, or they visit camp every once in a while. If we had gotten to build up, this could have been a gut-wrenching season finale, as opposed to a mid-season, dramatic episode, comedy turned drama. I will agree with you, the pacing's a little choppy, but put yourself in the mindset of watching this on your TV screen in 1973. Which, oh, by the way, this episode aired. I forgot to mention when this episode aired.
Put it in post.
No. It aired January 28th, 1973. It's the height of the Vietnam War. The day before this, the peace agreement was signed ending America's involvement in Vietnam. So imagine you've been watching for several years war correspondent footage, casualty statistics about Vietnam, and now you're watching this funny doctor show, and they kill the lead character's best friend, who admittedly you did not get to know very well, on his operating table. That is, by today's standards, that's okay, yeah. How many characters die in a given episode of any TV show per day? Like, whatever, Game of Thrones be killing off main characters like it's going out of style. For 1970s television, this was a bit much. I don't want to say not a bit much, but this was not pulling their punches for 1970s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think this this episode acts as an excellent advertisement for what the potential of MASH, or what it could have been if they had, not had to do, oh yeah, here, you're going to make us 12 episodes. And then, oh yeah, here, you can make us a couple more episodes. Instead of just like, hey, here's a budget. Give us a couple seasons. If they had done that, this could have been amazing. But they did what they could with what they had. And yeah,
and
the excellent writing shows through. Definitely. They're just constrained by the format and the production style that they had.
And Larry Gelbart mentioned that, and you notice this with the first half of the season that we've watched already, very silly episodes with a very little bit of seriousness. Like, again, the Moose episode, a little bit in Yankee Doodle Doctor, a little bit in Chief Surgeon Who, a little bit in the pilot where you have that, serious moment of, hey, we might be arrested, but we're still here in a war zone doing certain, like, you gotten these little tastes of it. This is where they crank it up to full blast, and is one of the episodes where Larry Gelbart and Gene Reynolds wanted to really push what they wanted the show to become, or what they wanted the show to be not even want to say a platform for. They wanted to crank that dial between comedy and drama and make people laugh, but also make people remember that this is a war and bad things happen. So Tommy's on the table. Hawkeye has a moment of shock. What else were you guys thinking as this scene? What think of Alan Alda and James Callahan's performances here?
Oh, beautiful. Beautifully done.
I love it.
Especially because with the surgical masks and everything, Alan Alda has to convey everything with like a 2-inch wide strip of basically just his eyes. And
that is
like
going to be something. Muscles.
Yeah,
that is going to be something I constantly point out in scenes like this that we're going to get in the future, is the amount, all the actors, Alan Alda, McClane's, all of them, even the future actors who we haven't met yet, the amount between their voice, their body language, and their eyes, the amount of emotion they're able to display is phenomenal. And I think that's because a lot of human emotion you can read through the eyes and the eyebrows, but still, holy crap. I love that Hawkeye is trying to maintaining his composure professionally, as Hawkeye does by telling the little quips like, I need a whole blood. It's for me. I'm anemic. Like, his jokes are still, honestly, his jokes are still funny, but you're realizing that it's coming from a place of, and I've done this, I've made jokes in a stressful situation and people look at me like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? It's like, it's either this or scream. Like, it's either make jokes or scream, and I've chosen jokes.
Mm-hmm.
There is someone else that we need to give credit for this scene and the scene after this, and that is McLean Stevenson. With one word in this OR scene, he says he's starting to build the fact that he said that Hawkeye is the better doctor, which is true. Henry is the more experienced doctor.
Mm-hmm.
He heard Hawkeye call out. He's shot through the aorta. He's hearing the nurse. He's hearing, oh, hey, hang on, pause. Happy moment. Ugly John's here.
Oh my God, he is.
Ugly John's here.
Oh, thank God.
He's calling out that the pressure's dropping. Tommy's clearly losing it. And you hear, and McLean Stevenson, again, I might be hyperbolizing a little bit, but I think the way McLean Stevenson delivers the line, calling for Father Mulcahy, is just very, it's like the vulture has landed over the operating table when he says that line. Father Mulcahy, and you can tell Henry knows how this is going to end. And Henry saying that is what makes my heart drop every time I hear this scene. Not Tommy and Alan Alda, not James and Alan Alda's dialogue. It's Henry looking up, glancing over, and going, Father Mulcahy for last rites. That McLean Stevenson deserves just as much credit as James and Alan for this scene. But Tommy mentions that, you want to hear something funny? I heard the bullet. And Hawkeye, while he's working, just mentions, okay, change the title. It's a better title anyway, which, to be fair, it is. Sometimes You Hear the Bullet is a much better title.
That's why they call it that.
Oh my gosh, he said the thing. They lose pressure and pulse on Tommy. Hawkeye immediately is going to go for open heart massage. Henry knows that the aorta is shot. There's no amount of CPR or heart massage that is going to restart the heart or save Tommy. And again, the other line that McClane delivers that's just heart-wrenching is Pierce. Just his name. This is just an amazingly acted series of scenes, an amazingly written series. Ignoring the pacing, ignoring that you've only met Tommy for 3.5 minutes. This scene and the scene following this, I think, are fantastic. Any thoughts from you guys? Because again, I'm trying to like rein myself in from just going on a diatribe. Not very well, I will admit.
Acted scene. It's just beautifully acted.
Yeah, you're hitting the notes that I would have hit otherwise. So yeah, keep going.
So I'll just open-end question then. The following scene, we get Hawkeye and Henry talking outside OR. What'd you guys think of that?
I'm glad they're actually showing that. You know, I'm glad we're getting the full experience of just like, oh, best friend died. And on to the end of the episode, it's like, no, this has a lasting effect. It's not just... Because I feel like modern television really doesn't show... It treats death as just kind of like a tool and not actually a part of life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to get a moment of serious McClane Stevens, you know? A lot of his acting thus far has kind of been at his expense, you know, the butt of some jokes. And don't get me wrong, drunk, ready to earn his pistol allowance Henry was a treat. But, you know, this is in its own element, and I respect it.
One of the common... There's a bunch of little dividing lines in the MASH fandom. Do you like the early seasons? Do you like the later seasons? Do you like Potter? Do you like Henry? Do you like Winchester? Do you like Burns? Do you like Trapper or BJ? Did you hate it after Radar left, before Radar left? All this stuff.
Spoilers!
Shush. I think most people, and because he was on the show longer, like Colonel Potter, and consider Henry the more funny commander. But he has a handful of scenes like this, and we've watched one of them. I remember, I think, Ethan, you were particularly fond of, we all were, but Ethan in particular, you really liked the argument between Frank and Henry in Chief Surgeon Who.
Absolutely.
This is another moment where you realize, yeah, Henry's a goofball, but there's a reason they put him in charge. He is an experienced doctor. He may not be as good as Hawkeye, but he's done it longer and has dealt, maybe not military death, but he has had to deal with, you know, telling a patient the worst news or seeing a patient get worse and worse. And I just love how they give Henry the opportunity to be the mentor figure, since he is older and the more senior doctor, even though he's not necessarily maybe the most technically skilled compared to Hawkeye. And I love how there's no laugh track in this scene. It's quiet. And I love that they give Alan Alda a chance to, as Hawkeye, just be honest, just be open with, like, the fact that, and again, Hawkeye is such a professional doctor, and he calls himself out a little bit, like, this is the first time I've cried since I've been here. I've watched kids die every single day, and I felt nothing for them other than general frustration at the whole situation. Why didn't I cry for them? And I love that Henry has a very real response of, Tommy was your friend. It's different. You're a professional. You are a good doctor. You don't let yourself get overly attached. You can still be angry about it, but you don't let it you can't go to pieces for every patient that passes. This is not an ordinary patient. It's okay. What you're feeling is okay. So, and then Henry delivers a line which I think they must have had this line printed out and taped up in the writer's room for this show, because this theme is something that they revisit again and again and again in several episodes. Henry mentions that there are certain rules about a war. Rule number 1 is young men die. Rule number 2 is that doctors cannot change rule number 1. How'd you feel about that little truth bomb?
Yeah. Hard fact.
That is the line. Like yours, Anthony, was that another word for Gooks' people. Mine was that line delivered that way.
Mm-hmm. And I the reason I say this line is an important one for the rest of the show is they don't, much like Yankee Doodle Doctor, where Frank is doing the whole, like, they're saints in surgical garb, da-da-da, and Hawkeye comes back at the end of the episode with, this has the same energy as the whole, our talent, our skills, our technique are not enough. There are going to be times in this show where you're like, oh, the doctors are going to figure it out. Nope, their patient died. And this is, I believe, Tommy is the first patient we see die in the show. I can't remember that any patient has expired since the pilot. Am I correct in that? I don't think so.
I don't think we've had any on-screen deaths in the.
This is also the most serious OR scene we've gotten. I think the next most serious scene we've gotten is maybe an argument between Frank and Hawkeye, and that one time a general's heart was doing a thing and they walked out of the room with him open on the table.
They're just like, yeah, he'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Well, was he?
So, I mean, I would hope so. So, Hawkeye and Henry, this whole conversation is wonderful. And this is where a lot of people give credit to Alan Alda for this scene, which he should get. He's doing an excellent performance, but there's two sides to this scene, and McLean Stevenson deserves just as much credit as Alan Alda for this scene. This is probably one of my favorite scenes of the show, period. Just this conversation between the two of them. So, anyway, that little conversation fires up Hawkeye because he realized doctors may not be able to change rule number 1, but he can for one specific soldier. Q going and ratting out Wendell to Margaret, the fact that he's 15, put a guard on him, and as soon as he's well enough to travel, get him out of here. To which Wendell responds, I'm going to hate you for this for the rest of my life. To which Hawkeye responds with a little bit of a smile, I hope it's a long and healthy hate. Now, are you guys familiar with what TV syndication is?
No.
So we're watching the full episode as it was edited to air. Specific TV stations have to make time for their commercial spots. So typically, syndicators will go through the material and trim certain parts of the episode. Typically, the credits, not the credit sequences, but maybe the top parts of the title sequences. There's very rarely do they cut stuff out of the middle, but they do. And almost always, if they need to cut time, they'll cut the bumper scene. In almost every syndicated version of the TV show, including some of our audience members commented that they have not seen the bumper scene that plays after this didn't exist for them. The episode ended on Hawkeye's Let's Hope It's a Long and Healthy Hate.
Mine did.
And yours did? Oh, on Hulu it did?
Yep.
You didn't get the bumper scene?
No.
Huh. Interesting. So, okay, I have a very rare opportunity for you for our podcast, because I assumed you were watching the versions with okay, that's interesting. So Hulu is syndicating a little bit. Interesting. Huh. Weird. Okay. That might be a problem. We might need to get you the copies Jared and I have, because I think in some episodes it's going to make a significant difference. Okay, then I'll ask you this, Ethan. What do you think of that ending? If the episode did end right there for you, how do you feel about that? That's where it left off.
You know, I like it. It's cliffhanger isn't the right word, but you know, that is it's a strong ending. It goes out on a serious note.
Okay, Jared, you got the bumper scene, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Without giving away the bumper scene, we'll explain it for Ethan here in a minute. Hold on, I'll pull it up on YouTube. No, hang on, but just hold on. No, you don't. It's fine. It's not complicated. We can explain it fairly quickly. What would you have thought if the episode ended right there?
Oh, if it had ended there?
Just long and healthy hate, Hawkeye walks out. That's the end of the show, credits roll.
It would have been a bit of a different ending tone from some of the other episodes, but I would have respected it. I feel like the bumper scene gets it back into the kind of the MASH groove and out of the pits of depression that we were in.
Yeah, it softens the landing just a little bit. Because so the bumper scene, Ethan, is Frank is being awarded the Purple Heart.
Of course.
Frank is being awarded his Purple Heart. As Henry is reading off the citation, Radar opens the metal box, looks at it, looks up at Henry, looks back at the metal box, and tries to get Henry's attention. Henry takes the metal box and presents Frank with the purple earring. Meanwhile, outside, Wendell Peterson in his Marine dress uniform is being pinned with a Purple Heart courtesy of Hawkeye, so he has a medal to show Bernice. Quote Hawkeye, bet you didn't know that getting your appendix out at a frontline unit qualified you for the Purple Heart. And they leave on a smile and a handshake. Trapper says, see you later, Wendell. To which he replies, Walter. To which Trapper replies, the both of you.
Oh, a trapper zinger, finally.
And Walter is driven out of camp and the show ends. So, now that you know what the bumper scene is, which ending do you prefer, Ethan? This is a very... I did not think I would have the opportunity to ask this on this episode, so I'm very happy I do. Which ending would you preferred? The softer one or the harder one?
The show, this episode in particular, resonated with me a lot more without the bumper, because this is one of the first episodes that had a really hard stop, you know? It's 60 to 0, and that's it. Roll credits.
Yeah.
I kind of like that, you know, all is forgiven and Opie is headed back to Mayberry. I think that's funny, but in terms of the scene that I got with Henry delivering his lines and Hawkeye coming to terms with his role as a doctor in a war where young men constantly die.
Yeah. I had expected you would see the bumper scene, and I'd have to tell you guys, well, actually, most people saw it this way. I am so happy you got to experience it without the bumper scene. That's really cool, actually.
Well, yeah, that worked out pretty well.
So, that was Sometimes You Hear the Bullet. The MASH episode that I would say is, I'm just going to shoot my shot right away. This is my favorite episode of season 1 by far. But we'll get into the ratings later. I will say, before I let you guys give your overall thoughts on the episode, now that we've kind of got into it in detail, this is one of the cast members' favorite episodes. Does anyone want to take a guess which cast member said this is their favorite episode of the entire show?
McLean Stevens.
No. One Larry Linville. This is Larry Linville's favorite episode of the show because he thought this episode struck the perfect balance, one of the best balances, he said, of comedy into drama. I think it was a decently funny show, and then they hit you with that punch of reality. I would tend to agree with him on that.
Yeah.
They do a lot of other episodes where I think they do have a great A and B funny plot, serious plot, but as far as Larry Linville's concerned, this was his favorite episode because of that. So, yeah, Frank likes it. Yay. Which is funny because Larry Linville didn't have a lot to do. He was just kind of a C-plot, but still.
He was in traction, and I'm jealous of him for that.
So before we get to the many, many audience comments, and I know this episode's taking a while, but I warned you guys this one was going to be one we talked about a bit.
I don't care.
Now that you've heard me rave about this episode before we watched the series, you've now seen this episode. What are your thoughts on it overall? We've talked about the specifics. Overall, what are your thoughts?
Yep, it's good. It has some pacing issues, but it has excellent writing overall. Deals with serious topics. Yeah, I'd say it's pretty good.
Excellent.
Pretty good. I could do a 4.8 out of 5.
4.8 out of 5. Good. I like this.
I think it's just the pacing issues that threw it off for me.
That's fair. That's fair. And yeah.
Not that that's any fault of the writers, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's more, like you said, that's more of a constraint of the type of how television is produced back then, as opposed to. Wilson, how about you? What do you think?
I think Jasky has some valid points about the pacing issues. I'm more likely to overlook pacing issues because I'm so used to media from this particular time period. You know, it's a very common thread. It's a common issue they have, or whatever you'd like to call it.
Yeah, TV was much simpler than the hour-long HBO dramas we get in today.
I thought it was really good. I'm guessing from what we've talked about, privately over the last few years, that this is a taste, kind of the first real taste of what's to come. But that is only a guess at best. I'm going to parrot Jasky 4.8.
No secret, I think. I said it. This is my favorite episode, and I could be a mature grown-up adult and acknowledge that there are pacing issues. There are a few things that are about how quickly they introduce Tommy. This is not a time for that. This is an absolute 5 for me. This is one of the best episodes of the series, hands down, in my opinion.
That's high praise.
I would say there's 2 episodes this series so far, or this season so far, I've rated 5. This episode and Chief Surgeon Who.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Chief Surgeon is my favorite to watch because it's a little funnier and there's a little more plot going on, a little more stuff going on with everyone as opposed to Hawkeye and such. But I would say, and we've had this discussion of this term before, I think this is for sure season 1's, but definitely one of the show overall's magnum opuses. The piece of media that an artist does that is not necessarily their most popular, but it is one of their most influential for their style. So I would say this is a 5 for me because I recognize that it's one of the episodes that sets a tone for the rest of the series. So yeah, 5 for me. 5 for me.
Nice.
But we are not the only people who have opinions. The audience has opinions.
Allegedly.
And we'll quickly get through them because I sense that we're all longing to get back to Viking times. Side note, we've all been playing a game called Valheim where it's basically Minecraft but Vikings, so that's how we've been enjoying our weekday evenings. So, from the Twitter, Big Beard Booty Daddy, first to respond. 5 out of 5. The first episode that truly showed what MASH could and would be. The way they seamlessly blended comedy and drama was perfect. It showed the true horror of war and how it personally affected even the doctors. Big Beard Booty Daddy was, I believe, was he? I think Big Beard Booty Dad was one of the people that came back and mentioned they had only seen the syndicated version and did not see the bumper scene until now. 5 out of 5 from Lightsaber Kills Fascists. First truly classic MASH episode, illustrating that war is often random and cruel and unexpected and personal. Smart storytelling. The juxtaposition of Wendell's naivete and Hawkeye's hum-ho attitude. Wendell's naivete and gung-ho attitude and Hawk's naivete to the reality of war and kind of lying to himself that he can save everyone. So yeah, lots of stuff going on there. Chief Smash Forever says 4 out of 5. Agree with all the other comments, but it's never really been a favorite of his, which is why it's a 4. Do understand the impact that this episode has in laying the groundwork of what MASH will become. The Henry Hawkeye talk is truly an amazing scene. Yes.
Amen.
Donut Eater says 5. He likes how Hawkeye was willing to look away with Wendell until he realizes the possible cost. Yeah. The moment that he realized, like, oh, this is a real thing that could happen. It was Donut Eater. Donut Eater said, well, while the ending with the Purple Heart was a nice moment, I do think the long and healthy hate line is more powerful ending, and one of the few times where the TV edits work in the show's favor. Yeah. Yeah, and Big Beard Booty Day said, too, this is the first time he'd seen it with the bumper scene. And Chad Smith gave it a 5 out of 5, no question. McLean Stevenson nails it, even though he is much better known for his comedy. So, yeah. Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think this is definitely one of the mashiest mashes to ever mash. So yeah. That was, I am now that we've gotten to the episode that I said, oh my gosh, you need to get to this episode to enjoy the show, I'll close with the question to you guys and to anyone in the audience who is maybe watching this for the first time. Am I right or wrong? Is this, I think I would change my statement to, this is one of the episodes you should watch before you decide whether you should carry on with the show. I would lump Chief Surgeon Who and a couple of the other early episodes in there. But now that you've gotten here, what do you guys think of all the claims I have made over the years? Did I overhype the show? That's what I'm...
No.
Okay.
I think if you had to convince me to watch the full series with one episode, out of the ones we've seen so far, this would have to be it.
Okay.
This is probably the only one that would have sold me hook, line, and sinker.
Like, yeah, there's some nice moments in other episodes, and there are some episodes that are pretty good. But this is the one that best encapsulates why should you watch MASH.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here.
Excellent. Yeah, I think, and we'll talk about this more when we get to like the end of season 1, but I think my new statement will be watch Chief Surgeon Who, Dear Dad, Sometimes You Hear the Bullet, then make a decision. Because you get a little bit of the funny, a little bit of the character development, and then you get the gut punch. That would be my new amended statement, but I'm glad you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the show overall. At least I think you are. Either that or you're gaslighting me ridiculously right now.
There you go, making up words again. Do you have any idea how crazy you sound?
Yeah. But yeah, that's been Sometimes You Hear the Bullet. Next episode. The next episode of MASH we're going to do is Dear Dad again, but that will not be the next episode of the podcast. The next episode of the podcast will be a break from MASH, a breather for the start of the new year. We're going to discuss our favorite pieces of media. Again, that can be books, TV, movie, internet stuff, video games. If there's anything you enjoyed in 2022 that you would like to share with us, let us know. We're going to bring some of ours to the table and just have a nice little breather from MASH and a nice little conversation. So let us know what media you have been enjoying. If you think we missed any discussion points on this episode, please let us know. You can reach out to us on Twitter at BestCareAnywhere, You can reach out to us via email, bestcareanywherepod@gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram. We're everywhere. We're easy to find. If there's somewhere that we aren't that you think we should be, let us know. And if you're enjoying the episodes, please share it with a friend. Force them to watch MASH as I have with my friends. Trust me, they'll love you for it. And hit whatever button on whatever thing you're using to listen to us that, tells us you love us, gives us 5 stars. You can complain about us. Give us a 1-star review. I don't care. Tell us what we're doing wrong. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. With that, I've been Anthony. Those two have been Jared and Ethan. Someone's Snapchat just went off. And I got nothing else. What about you guys?
Click all the buttons. Receive the serotonin.
Click the buttons. Receive the serotonin. Ethan?
I just want to kiss McLean Stevenson's alive face. Is that too much to ask?
It is. It is absolutely too much to ask.
Well
please. All right. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
The time has come for us to say sayonara. My heart will always be yours for eternity.